In the universe of Starfield, it seems that despite conquering the vast distances between the stars, humanity couldn't stop itself from dragging their worst impulses with them. Despite developing new technologies and taming alien worlds, humanity never changes. My name is Shelley, and welcome to TheAstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today we'll be discussing the in-game timeline behind Bethesda's next highly anticipated game, Starfield. Before we get started, I want to give you a reminder that if you want me to cover Starfield lore more in the coming months as the game comes out, be sure to let me know by liking the video and subscribing for more content. With that said, let's jump into the universe of the settled systems. Recently, the full timeline of events that lead to the start of the game was released on Bethesda's official page for Starfield, and it revealed some interesting facts about the universe. Some of it had confirmed ideas I had about the lore of the game, and others threw the entire situation of the settled systems into a much more familiar situation when it came to the rise of interstellar governments. The timeline starts in 2050, with the first humans arriving on Mars from Earth. Within 50 years, humanity had spread out to the entire solar system. This is likely when the first permanent settlements began to be built, like the city of Cydonia. In 2156, the first humans arrived in Alpha Centauri, likely with the first working grav drives. The system is the closest star system to Earth at 4.37 light-years away, and thus the obvious choice for humanity's first interstellar attempt. Within 4 years of the first humans arriving in the system, the United Colony government was established. By 2161, the UC's capital, New Atlantis, was founded in Alpha Centauri. This new government included at least Sol and Alpha Centauri initially, and seemed to only recognize a few as citizens. This is likely meant as a status to be earned or granted, as citizenship did not seem to be automatic, possibly creating a stratified society of civilians and citizens with separate rights and responsibilities. This may have even been the fact that spurred on further exploration and colonization. The founding of the UC seemed to spark a wave of colonization as pioneers and hopefuls flooded the nearby star systems. Thus, humans were racing to find their own perfect worlds to claim free from the influence of groups like the UC. 6 years after the founding of New Atlantis in 2167, the system of Cheyenne was settled by Solomon Coe. Coe seems to have been a pioneer of sorts as he established Aquila City. In 2188, Coe invited the system of Reily, likely at the time controlled by the nascent Xenofresh Corporation and their vice city of Neon, to create a political alliance, which would become known as the Freestar Collective in 2189. By the late 22nd century, there seemed to be many unaligned and independent colonies and outposts scattered all over human space. This fact may have upset the United Colonies, who, in 2194, positioned a star station called the Clinic in orbit around Dipla in the Narian system, an unaffiliated and independent star system. The residents of the Narian system saw this as a UC attempt to expand their borders, and demanded the UC remove the Clinic, a demand the UC denied. In response, the people of Narian voted to join the Freestar Collective, in order to regain the autonomy of their system. By 2195, the Freestar Collective had mobilized their forces into the system, and within a year, the UC moved a fleet to counter them. This marked the start of what is likely the first interstellar war of humanity, known as the Narian War. The conflict would rage for 20 years, and support for the war on both sides must have plummeted, as by 2216, the UC and the Freestar Collective came to the negotiation table and officially ended the war with the Treaty of Narian. This treaty would mark the first official use of the term settled systems to describe human-controlled space, a part of space that, even today, is still not fully settled. In the aftermath of the conflict, the Freestar Collective formed the Freestar Rangers in 2221, likely as a means to keep the peace in the post-war period, as spending on the military had probably dropped to an all-time low levels, while veterans with military experience and few jobs would have meant danger on the home front. Peace seemed to have finally come to the settled systems, and as such, its residents turned their attention to securing humanity's grip on the stars. This would lead to 2275, when a man by the name of Sebastian Banks formed Constellation, an organization dedicated to exploration and scientific discovery. The group was formed with a range of impressive figures, like Anya Mamasa, Banks' protege and the youngest member, Chloe Bao, an accomplished physicist, Darius Andres, a botanist and specialist in xenoflora, Bernadette Laurent, a wealthy heiress and adventurer, Everardo Gil, a former smuggler, and Kadri Toma, biologist and physician. The group's headquarters, known as the Lodge, was built in New Atlantis to serve the needs of the group, with an eye on the future. It seemed that Mr. Banks was intending Constellation to be around for years to come. This was attested to by the fact that in 2305, 30 years after the group's founding, Barrett, an engineer, joined the ranks of Constellation. By 2307, new troubles began to emerge once again, and they were focused squarely on the two largest governments of the settled systems, the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective. The Freestar Collective began farming on the planet of Vesta in the Lunaria system. By 2308, the United Colonies claimed that by establishing a colony in a fourth star system, the Freestar Collective had violated the terms of the Treaty of Narian. Diplomatic talks broke down, and the UC laid siege to Vesta. The fighting on the planet was fierce, and no one who stayed behind to defend the world, or were brought in to support the Freestar's claim, were allowed to live. The massacre at Vesta thrust the two powers into what would become known as the Colony War. In 2310, while the settled systems was embroiled in the war, Constellation, who had not stopped in their mission, discovered an object which would become known as the Artifact, a piece of technology of seemingly unknown origin. After its discovery, Constellation tucked this find away in their archives, for unknown reasons. By 2311, the war reached its peak with the Battle of Cheyenne. As the UC fleet approached the capital of the Freestar Collective, they were met by a flotilla of civilian and military Freestar ships, who engaged the better-armed UC fleet in hit-and-run attacks. These attacks crippled or destroyed key UC ships, making the invasion of the system impossible and bringing the Colony War to an end. Embarrassed by their defeat, the UC studied the tactics employed by the Freestar Collective, and in 2315 formed the UC Vanguard. The Vanguard is a civilian navy, a kind of militia fleet, where civilians would use their own ships and pledge to protect and defend the UC in exchange for UC citizenship. Around this time, the UC also created a new division called the UC Navigator Corps, likely dedicated to exploring the settled systems. By 2319, Sarah Morgan rose to lead the Navigator Corps until the division was dissolved in 2320. It was then that she joined Constellation. From then on, Constellation began to gather a new generation of explorers, beginning with Walter Stroud, CEO of the premier ship manufacturing company Stroud Eklund, who would become the primary financial backer of the group in 2321. Then, former Crimson Fleet pirate Vladimir Saul joined in 2322, followed by theologian Matteo Catiri in 2525. That same year, Sarah Morgan became the chair of Constellation, just before a discovery by Barrett would give the explorers a new mystery to solve. In 2526, Barrett discovered the artifact, which had remained in the Constellation archives since the Colony War. This discovery likely kicked off another wave of recruitment, as that same year, Noel, a gifted scientist, would join the group as the protege of Morgan, followed by Freestar Ranger Sam Coe, likely of the legendary Coe family, along with his daughter Cora in 2527. It may have also kicked off a new wave of interest in solving the mystery of the artifact, as in 2528, Barrett was given the funds to buy an entire star station known as L-868, and modify it to become a deep space scanner nicknamed the Eye. Given the importance of the artifact to the story, this may have been done in order to find similar artifacts. That leads us to the moment the game begins, 2530, as your character joins Constellation helping in the search for the mysterious artifacts. It's a time where the settled systems are on a knife's edge. An uneasy peace remains between the Freestar Collective and the United Colonies. Spacers, Ecliptic Mercenaries, Cultists of House Varun, and the Crimson Fleet are terrorizing Freestar and UC space, seemingly unopposed, all while you are exploring parts of the systems which lie far beyond the edge of human habitation. And that is the entire timeline so far of the universe of Starfield. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Y'all really liked the last video, and it did so well that Bethesda reached out to me to offer a review copy of the game, which, to be honest, made this video very difficult to make as I can't say anything until the embargo lifts later this month. However, there will be a spoiler-free review of the game's general atmosphere and story, and another on the gameplay itself on my other channel, The Astropub Live, as soon as the embargo lifts on August 31st. So be sure to subscribe to both channels and keep your eye out for those videos coming soon. As always, let me know in the comments if you're interested in learning more about the universe of Starfield and other sci-fi universes. If you really enjoyed what you watched, think about hitting the subscribe button or becoming a Patreon like those on screen now to help make future videos possible. Until next time, remember, ex historia ad astra.